I feel like people make excuses for foreigners.
Here is worse than Japan.
Way worse. Where can I go? And where is it easiest to hook up with the most amount of women?
It gives separatism room. In China, a lot of parents don't think that's a big deal.
Because you are an ugly person for making a whole post about a girl who's confident. If society doesn't care about my rights, then I don't care about society. You guys asked, and we're here to deliver with a video of what I think China could do better. So just a disclaimer, because I know some people will just read the title and be ready to cuss me out. I'm not saying China is bad or that I hate China. I really love living here. This is not me saying that my country is better than China. It is just things I think could be improved, and they're not isolated to China alone. You feel uncomfortable with this video, you can go see our previous video where I talk about what my country does worse than China. I hope you guys will enjoy this video, and maybe you can see some of these issues, or maybe you'll agree with some of these things. Let's get started.
好歹也是外国友人啊。
The first one is Westsimping. This is for sure a word I think most Chinese people recognize, but maybe foreigners don't. I very quickly picked up on it being a thing, but it was very, very shocking to me when I first came here and I started recognizing it.
I'm surprised that you have lived in Japan. So you said you think Westsimping here is worse than Japan.
Way worse. It also exists in Japan. I guess it also exists in Korea. But here it's just another extremity. I feel like people make excuses for foreigners. Where in Japan I saw that people were more like, you're here, you should act like us. There are some Chinese that will be like that. There's also a lot of people that will push back and be like, no, they're foreigners, their culture is different.
好歹也是外国友人啊，我们好歹也是礼仪之邦。
And sometimes it leads to a little bit of an awkward feeling. You said that I get better service than you do.
Yeah, I think it shows in a lot of places. Their attitude is slightly better.
I get more stuff for free.
Yeah.
Foreigners even give me recommendations like, oh, you're foreigners who go to this place, they'll give you stuff for free. And I was a bit like, oh, I don't like that. Modeling is mostly just foreigners. You see way too many Western models, considering that this country is pretty much only Asians. Like, it's not even like dark-haired foreigners, it's blonde, ginger, color-eyed people.
It's not for this market, it seems.
I think especially white men here have an advantage when they date, and they do abuse it. I want to point that out because I see how foreigners talk in foreigner-only communities. They give each other advice on like, where can I go? And where is it easiest to hook up with the most amount of women? It's very nasty, but I also feel like people should push back on it more and be like, not acceptable. I've also noticed that people portray Western countries very fairy tale-esque, like we don't have problems, we don't have sexism, especially my country's background, like the Beio nations.
Yeah, first is North America, and later it's like France, Germany, but all these fairy tales are shattered or like broken. Yeah, and people are like, oh, Scandinavia.
We still have the same issues that everyone else has. Please don't look at the West with rose-colored glasses. You'll have issues there, and like it won't solve everything. I'm not saying don't go to the West. Maybe you'll love it, you know, but just be realistic. It's just other countries and you'll be a foreigner.
Yeah.
Working rights. I know it's a very big topic right now, and I think it's constantly a very big topic pretty much everywhere. I actually found out recently that my granddad was a union man. I care a lot about working rights. It's probably one of the things I'm the most passionate about. And I always thought if I ever get into the position where I own my own company, that's the number one most important thing to me, is that I treat my workers well. It's no secret to any Chinese person that the working rights here are not good. I watched him suffer a lot when we were apart because you're in an industry that's even worse.
Yeah, well, I used to work for one of the big four. If you know those companies, you know their working right is probably the worst in the world.
Inhumane.
Yeah, overwork is very, very common, but they don't pay you enough overtime.
Yeah, they don't compensate you fully.
They break the law regularly. Because by law, your staff can only work 36 hours as overtime. But we work way more than that.
They just don't pay you for what runs over.
不是8小时工作制吗？8小时，大家都是自愿加班的，绝对没有人强迫。您记住了，在外边也得这么说。明白了。
If you report it to the government, sometimes you get your money back, but they don't get a lot of punishment. And I feel like as an employee, sometimes you feel you're very vulnerable. You don't have an organization to protect you.
因为商业本身就是最大的公益。
The 996 culture here is terrifying, and it's not good for society as a whole because an overworked person is just not productive as a citizen. It's my mindset. I don't believe you actually get more work done just by being at a company for more hours every day. Because if you overwork, you're tired and you're inefficient and you're bitter.
From my experience, a lot of my coworkers, if they know they're going to work overtime, they're not going to work hard in daytime. That's a pretty well-known thing.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. You pay me for this amount of hours, you have my attention for this amount of hours. I'll work hard when I'm being paid.
Yeah.
But that's it. You don't own me. Regional discrimination. In case anyone didn't pick up on the fact that I'm not Chinese, I am not. I only know this very superficially from seeing people have these regional fights. I made a post about being called a slur in Dongbei, and people immediately were like talking shit about Dongbei people, and I was like, I like Dongbei people, stop.
For example, when we post videos about like we travel somewhere and we slightly criticize that place, immediately in the comment section, people are like, they're not from here, they're 外地人.
Or they'll be like, of course those people are like that, those people are blah blah blah.
对吧，外地人？你们有本事你们滚回去啊！在上海干嘛啦？我就看不起你们这种外地人。
I would say like Dongbei people and Henan people are victimized a lot in this like regional discrimination topic.
There's no such thing as people being better or worse just because they're from a place. There's good and bad people everywhere.
Media played a really bad role in this. So for example, when it's a bad thing, they will mention, oh, this person's from that place. But when it's a good thing, they would never mention it. So people would just buy into that stereotype. So you see comments like, well, they're from Dongbei, of course they'll do that. This type of comment is so common.
I think it's very lame. You're just creating an artificial separation just because you want to feel higher than someone else. It's very stupid. I really hate this mentality.
Regional discrimination caused a lot of historical consequences. Late Ming Dynasty, Liaodong people were seen as barbarian by other Chinese. And when they fled to Shandong, they couldn't get any food even though they paid. And that's why the Wuqiao Bingbian rebellion happened. A lot of these things happen repeatedly, but people don't see it as a threat to the country. It is a real threat. It creates people's resentment. It gives separatism room.
Obviously, because China is still in its development phase, so you'll see a very big gap between how a person in Shanghai lives and how someone in a rural village lives. Like, it's countries apart. That also has a lot of discrimination tied into it, and it's very exhausting, to be honest, because I feel like it's out of touch that you discriminate against someone just because they were born somewhere different from you. I feel like you need to face the reality that you weren't special just because you were born somewhere. That's pure coincidence. I've heard the way Shanghainese people talk about the rest of China. I think that's like the most extreme version of this.
Yeah, they call them like 湘文你. Rural people. Rural people is actually a slur in a lot of dialects. That shows how serious people's discrimination on rural people. But also there's very big development gap between the rural and the urban.
That's probably one of the number one things that China gets criticism for. That is a legit thing. It's not fully fair because of course you can't develop a country of this size at the same time. It's more of a question of time, I hope. I also think as a citizen that you are willing to push for it. because we should want all people in this country to have a very good living standard. I don't think you can come to China and not realize that people are on their phone a lot. People here have real phone addiction. You see a lot of parents not being present with their kids, and couples being so on their phone that they're not even talking. It's very weird for me.
It's so common. When we go out, we rarely check our phone when we're together. We just saw those couples, they're clearly dating.
Yeah, they're romantically involved.
Yeah, they're having a meal, but they're not talking at all.
0 words were said.
No eye contact at all. Like, you just see them on their phone.
When I first came here, I was just, couples here hate each other. Wow. Mental health is wildly important for society as a whole. I get that it's also a privilege to be able to prioritize your mental health. And I also understand that it hasn't been a priority here because people haven't had the resources to care. That probably is part of why the older generation don't value mental health, because they went through a lot. But reality is, like, we're not in that stage as a society anymore, and it's important to prioritize that people need to feel better. Our generation has way more opportunity now, so we should push for this to improve. I also know that because this is a newer thing, there's not a lot of good mental health providers here.
Teenager suicide is a problem.
Yeah.
And mental problem is also a very big thing, because Chinese students face a lot of stress.
Yeah.
我国儿童青少年精神障碍流行率达到17.5%，他们到底怎么了？
What I experience is mental support in university is there. You can get appointment, but it's more like lecturing. When you're in trouble, the least thing you want is being lectured.
You already feel like you're a bad person for having this problem.
Yeah. I just feel like in China, a lot of parents don't think that's a big deal.
There's a lot of pressure on kids here. That's the thing that China is infamous for. That parents are very harsh on their kids. When I had been here for 2 months, we were in a restaurant and a mom was so mean to her daughter. Her daughter was studying and was crying. Her mom was just being very demeaning. Putting down your daughter won't make her successful. Successful people have confidence, and that comes from people showing you that you matter. You shouldn't teach your kids to be pushovers, not even to you.
Of course, we know that in China it's very competitive. You want your kid to be competitive, but it doesn't mean you need to be cruel. You can be strict.
Yeah, I think you can be strict and give your kids love and still tell them that you love them, give them hugs.
I'm not from a family like that.
No.
My parents are very loving and caring to me.
I'm very grateful. I think it helped make you a very kind person.
I think I'm really lucky that my parents told me they love me.
I know some people say, oh, it's just concern. It's not. Let's call it what it is. You're not being concerned when you say, oh, you've gotten fat recently.
然后有一个遛狗的大爷，他带了2只狗，然后走到我旁边来，走过来，回头看我说，真该减肥了啊，然后就走了。我就是哇塞，我
That's not concern. You're just being an ass. You want to poke people because you feel lower than them. I've also commented back at people on Xiaohongshu shaming a model for weighing a certain way and being like, how can you be a model? Like, I wish I was as confident as her. I bet you did, because you are an ugly person for making a whole post about a girl who's confident. I think there's a culture here of praising people for being unhealthy.
Yeah.
Celebrities publicly talking about their dumb ass diets.
就不吃啊。对，我那段时间是纯饿啊，不运动，纯饿。
You should not be allowed to promote just eating ice cubes or only eating apples. It's a very safe way to destroy your health forever. It's not worth it. You could lose all your teeth. You can lose your vision.
逐渐从100斤左右，然后瘦到了50多斤。 最明显的可能就是脱发呀，然后脸上可能就没有光泽，身上长那个斑点的话，真的是到非常严重的时候。还有就是停经
because your body starts prioritizing stuff to survive, and it's not just women, it's also men here. When I see people comment on a video, so and so gained weight, this person looks ugly, ha ha ha, like who are you? One time someone commented, she's beautiful but her shoulders are very wide. What are you talking about?
She has really narrow shoulder.
I just have a very small face. But it was so funny to me because I don't. And I know that. But I just think if it was a person that was more sensitive than me, and I also have my days where it affects me more.
Yeah.
It's not healthy to talk like this. And what do you gain from it? Are you perfect?
And a lot of celebrities lie about their weight.
And height.
Yeah. And they create this impossible beauty standard. The people are constantly feeling insecure about themselves. Yeah.
Bodybuilders.
The guy has been saying he's natural for years, but look at this guy's physique.
I'm a natty, but they're on steroid.
Gender discrimination is a very big conversation amongst Chinese citizens. I think as an outsider, I see like it's a double-sided issue because I also think men face some discrimination that I don't think is clear. Women, of course, face a lot as well. One thing that's really upsetting, but it happens everywhere, is that when women have children, that hurts their career very disproportionately. You don't get paid properly, you don't get promoted as much because you're a woman and you might get pregnant, which is so unfair because you don't have those same considerations for men that get married. And I hear that concern from a lot of Chinese women.
Yeah, and when you apply for a job, you see that a lot of job requirements are like men only.
他虽然说面上不写说啊，我尽量要男生，他不敢写，但是实际在招聘的时候他是有这个东西的。
When you got interviewed, your employer would ask you, "Are you single? Do you plan to get married in future? Do you plan to have a kid? Do you have a kid?" Those very personal questions.
Yeah.
So a lot of women are really scared that they will be discriminated in their career, so they choose not to get married.
Gotta say, when I see the government complaining about there's not enough kids being born, then tackle these issues because that's definitely a part of it. For me, that would give me the like, society doesn't care about my rights, then I don't care about society. Don't demand stuff from me if you're not going to give me equality.
Another part I think is the society's requirements on men and women are very, very different. And you can hear this type of language all the time. You're a man, you're supposed to be blah blah blah. You're a woman, you're supposed to be blah blah blah. This is a man thing, this is a woman thing.
所以女人出面参政是个坏的现象，女人应该打扮得漂漂亮亮的，很可爱的。
It's a very silly concept for me. I'm from a culture where that doesn't matter that much, and people would honestly be like, what are you talking about? We have a lot of this strong women mentality, I think. Independent woman, like, don't overstep. I'm my own woman. Yeah. We get kind of mad at this because we feel like you're being sexist to us by taking over when we didn't ask for help.
I think men can respect that. But I don't like women play weak.
I don't either. Just like how I don't like men playing macho.
Yeah. Some men act like you're a little weak woman.
Yeah. But you also get annoyed about this cultural aspect in me sometimes because I'm like, I can do it myself.
Sometimes clearly you can't, but you still act like this.
Okay. Moving on. This might be the most unpopular. It's unpopular when I say it in my home country. Prostitution? I'm from a country where it's legal. But wow, there's a lot of it here. Even though it's illegal, I'm not pro-legalizing it. I think it's exploiting women. Let's be real, it's primarily women being sold as meat, like a product. I don't think you can do that to a person. You cannot buy consent. Can you remember we went out to a bar?
Yeah.
And there came a whole group, 2 pimps and a whole group of prostitutes. One of the girls was wearing underwear as her bottom. I'm not joking. That was really shocking for me. Of course, you see it a little bit, but not even like close to this level, even though it's legal in my country.
You will notice there's a lot if you pay attention. And you see a lot of massage places, foot massage places, spa centers,
hotel, like that combination.
Some karaoke clubs.
But they have half-naked women as the picture.
Yeah, so it's very obvious in some bars and clubs.
I think it's one of the evils of society. I think it shows a decline in moral in society. And I don't look down on sex workers at all. I understand that there are situations where that's what you are forced into because of your circumstance and you're just trying to survive. I think that's most women in that field. But if you are a person who has purchased another human's consent,
everyone should laugh at people who buy prostitute.
You should go to prison.
Yeah. I know that it already got better because when I was little, it was worse. I remember in my hometown, there was a whole street. We call it the Pink Street. The government tried to crack it down. There are several cities in China. They're infamous of being the prostitute cities. Now they don't have that reputation anymore. I think it's a progress, but to be honest, it's really not enough. I heard some men talk about it in a very nasty way.
We've seen it in our comment section before.
Yeah, people even share their
advice.
Yeah, information about this. I think it's disgusting.
I think it's completely wrong that society blames women for this. No matter how good of a degree I got, how good of a job I could get, I will never make more money than I could selling myself.
Yeah.
And that is the most demeaning thing to know as a woman.
And our government put prostitution or like pornography together with gambling and drug for a reason.
Yes,
because prostitution is always linked to gang violence, like, you know, mafia or like human trafficking, corruption. It's always linked.
These are obviously quite negative things. It doesn't mean China is bad. Again, it is just some issues that exist in pretty much all societies, I think, in varying degrees. And I actually think China handles these issues better than a lot of countries. I think China improves, like you said, on a lot of these issues. They're getting better.
Yeah.
We both love China. I think I could say that easily. Yeah. We both care about this country improving. I think that's part of loving a country, is wanting it to change and improve. So I think that's pretty much all there is to it. We really care about this country and we want it to improve, and I bet most of you guys do as well. So I hope we'll see you guys for our next video, and maybe you'll consider subscribing if you're not already. Yeah. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.